Okay, all right. I hope there's enough time for judges to get reviewed on this next business model. So now we get to hear from the entrepreneur themselves. This is John with Block Transfer.
April 2020. Joe Crafter sweats profusely as hundreds of shareholder emails flood his inbox. Phones ring off the hook all day long for his team of nearly a dozen shareholder services reps. The mounting pressure feels like a blood vessel about to explode. Joe has no idea what to do about hundreds of millions of yet to be paid outstanding shareholder dividends. The post service came to a standstill once the workers came home because of COVID. For other reasons, these dividends for book entry shareholders are nowhere to be seen. Weeks later, shareholders call in from around the world with one question: where is my money? That's a question that's asked far too often in the transfer agent industry. For those not familiar, transfer agents are required by law for every single public company on earth, and they keep a big list of all the shareholders in the company. Here's an example one for a company on the NASDAQ, and they record who owns all the stock, a little bit of information about them, and then most significantly, how many shares they have. And so whenever there are trades, they eventually get transferred down to that transfer agent. This is incredibly important for things like stock splits, dividend distribution, and shareholder voting. But the way it's implemented is fundamentally flawed. You have one central middleman, one central point of failure that processes everything. And because everything goes to them, that means when you make a transfer, you have to follow their rules. Nowadays, that means that to transfer your stock, you have to print out a bunch of papers, go to the bank, show them your ID, sign a bunch of things, have them stamp everything, come home, mail it, wait for them to get it, wait for them to process it, then have them mail you a check back. And it is just a nightmare to deal with. We took this transfer agent process and implemented it on a decentralized blockchain so that shareholders could transfer directly to one another incredibly quickly without going through a central middleman. We've documented this in our patent covering our transfer agent processes, which were recently approved by the Securities and Exchange Commission for use as a registered transfer agent. The market in the US is about a $1.4 billion per year contract market, and about 75% of it is controlled by the top 5 firms. Like some finance products, the margins are high, but because of the nature that the central trust imposes on these guys, you're looking at contract margins of 80% on average annual contracts of $400,000 a year, which is just a waste of shareholder capital. However, the news is good. The market is changing up. In the last 11 months alone, these top 5 players have lost 12% market share, which is very big considering that they have been buying up smaller companies and growing over the past couple of decades. Especially if you look at sort of the broader $4 billion a year market, it's really moving towards the smaller players, and industry's changing, which is why we're excited to break into it now more than ever. Some of the mentors you had are on the left. You have Vlad Kolesnikov. He's an incredibly well-respected crypto researcher. His resume is 40 plus pages long. And he has been instrumental in a lot of the back-end crypto systems and blockchain processes that we use internally. And on the right, you have Jerry Perella. He's the Chief Information Security Officer at ICE, which owns NYSE. It's been crucial for our security, our internal systems, and just the absolute bare bones security of that user data and everything that we have with us. A little more on the founder. I got into capital markets when I was younger. I was working a minimum wage job at Subway, which was incredible. I think minimum wage job teaches you a lot. It was a really great experience. But not everyone really liked my boss. I was cool with him. He was a nice guy. He let me work underage, nothing against him. But about a year into working there, it got to the point where all my coworkers left because they were fed up. And I would actually work open to close completely alone, which was incredibly strenuous and really showed me that if I wanted to have any control over my financial future, I really had to take it into my own hands. And so over the next 6 months, I spent every waking moment outside of school and work just researching and learning about the stock market. And I made a couple of trades, had some winners, had some losers, and started learning about the sector. And then when summer came, I put in my 2-week notice. I quit my job to trade stocks full time. And in the first 2 weeks of paper trading, I made more than I made the entire year prior. And it completely changed my outlook and perspective on life. Kept trading. School started back up. I couldn't really trade the opening bell during second period. So I started getting into crypto, which you can trade 24 hours a day. It was a pretty good time to get in. It was early 2017. And also a lot of the strategies that I'd been learning and mastering in equities transferred over really, really well to crypto markets. So I started doing well until the crash at the end of 2017. At that point, I actually lost $100,000, which was devastating for me. And really, the reason why is because I was focusing my investments not on things I was really confident about or really strong technical setup, but rather in just kind of less high quality investments, more speculative investments. And I really realized that if I wanted to stay in this game for the long term, I had to allocate my assets at my core, where my strength was and what I really knew the most of. And that's when I took a pretty long time to reflect. And about a year later, I came out and I finished writing my first book on stock market investing, and I actually used all the strategies in here to go and start first hedge fund. That hedge fund was a $100,000 hedge fund, and we returned 140% over the course of 3 years. And while we were running the fund, we experienced firsthand all the challenges of waiting for these stock transfers. In particular, just before COVID hit, we were looking at shorting the market based on just economic indicators. And I remember looking at the screen and there was this one trade I was just dying to make. It's like, this is the trade we're going to make. It's going to be awesome. And I had the money in the bank account. I transferred the money. I had to transfer it to a brokerage account at the futures account. And it took 3.5 days for that money to transfer. And by the time the money landed in the trading account, the trade had already done what we thought it would do. It already started going down, and there was just nothing we could do. We couldn't enter the position at the time, which was just devastating and so disappointing. The position would have turned, give or take, 10 grand into about $1 million. It was a really strong trade that we missed just because the liquidity, just money wasn't there in time. And that really pushed me down under Vlad that semester to write a thesis. And at the end of the thesis we wrote for Vlad that semester, we realized in the last paragraph that we could actually apply everything we've been working on to the stock transfer agent market. And that's when we started working on block transfer. And since then, it's just grown and grown and led to the ultimately controversial decision to close the hedge fund after its best year ever to focus on block transfer. Now, some people ask, what's your vision for this company? What's it going to look like when your hair is all gray? Not that's a bad thing or anything. At the end of the day, usually when most people want to go invest, they go to a broker and they get some kind of financial advisor. And the challenge with that model is that most financial advisors working at brokers are accountants or people that look really good on paper. They passed all the accounting exams, whereas most very strong investors who know how to build really great outperforming portfolios go and run their own funds and get better compensated that way and find higher returns and growth that way, which is really a fundamental challenge for almost all investors because everyone's stuck with average or subpar returns most oftentimes with general advisors, whereas all of the higher returning investment portfolios are stuck only accessible to the upper echelon of wealthy society and really not most individuals. And that's wrong. One of the really big reasons that is because it's very challenging to verify what someone says about their portfolio experience. If, for instance, I said, hey, I have this really great returning fund, you should invest with me. And all I can really give you to prove that are some brokerage documents, which can really be easily forged. And one of the big reasons why is because it's very hard. Capital markets nowadays are very opaque. And so we see block transfer as kind of the first stepping stone into enabling global, decentralized, independent money managers to really thrive by making it incredibly transparent. So instead, when you have all the securities on the blockchain, you can always see the trades. This is the trade for this account. These are all the trades for this account. This is all the trades for this account's portfolio. And that's all publicly accessible. And you can always verify it right there, how people are doing. And that really opens up the gateways to higher investment returns for billions of people that are traditionally disenfranchised from capital markets and thus have challenges building real savings and retirements. And that's where we see the footing for block transfer and why I'm excited to share it with you.
Very nice. Great job, John. You got some big thinking there. Good job, my friend. So let's go to some Q&A.
Hi, John. Great presentation. Some of this is, can be pretty esoteric pretty quickly, and I'm heartened by, the two different kinds of education you've gotten. One from university, and the second from the market on some of those painful, losses that you've experienced. My question, though, is help me define a little bit further what the pain is that you're trying to identify for transferring ownership. I couldn't tell if it's for transferring ownership more quickly, or in the example of your story, are you trying to create an account more quickly at a place that can receive funds and then execute a trade?
Yeah, so transfer agents specifically cover book entry shareholders. So these are things like employee stock option plans or direct share purchase programs. Nowadays, to put it mildly, as perhaps you're familiar, there are a lot of intermediaries in financial markets. And there are give or take 10 intermediaries, if you go through a broker and make a trade, that you'll go through before you finally get to that transfer agent-led registrar. And what's cool about the transfer agent is you can trade directly with other investors, but very few people use it because it's incredibly painstaking to use transfer agents nowadays. And so the big idea is you would have those direct equity transfers. You can effectively bypass on average a dozen middlemen and thus drastically lower the expenses and the spreads and all the other fees you would have with the trade, and really enable higher growth returns for those investments that you make on the issuer book level.
Okay, so this is not, I mean, everyone knows about T3 and T1, that the time it takes to clear. If I make a trade in my E-Trade account or my wherever account, it takes 1 or 2 or 3 days to clear. I don't care about that, though, because I'm not necessarily, especially if I'm a trader and I'm not a long-term investor, I'm not holding on to that stock certificate for any period of time. It goes back. But you're actually describing a whole different way of engaging with the market by introducing this level of trading at the book level, at the transfer agent level.
That's exactly right.
And here's my question: how do you, this is an onion that's taken a little bit of layers to unpeel just to get to this level of understanding. And again, your presentation was very good. But I see this as a challenge. How are you overcoming this challenge of having to educate in order to bring this to what would presumably be your intention, to the masses of retail investors and traders?
Yeah, as I mentioned, that's more of a decade goal. Right now, usually transfer agents will charge 20 or $70 per transfer. I think that's silly. There's a lot of silly fees they charge. I think they're silly. We've been able to effectively get rid of those fees. So actually you're selling now directly to the company, and generally that's to the CFO of the company, and the CFO will make the decision for the company's transfer agent. And then, as mentioned, they'll have a contract. The average is $400,000 a year. And that's actually where the revenue model comes from. That's where the sales model goes to. And the big incentive for them is selling the idea of speed, and also selling that there are significant operational efficiencies. No one really likes to deal with transfer agents right now. And when you execute it on blockchain, you let them take care of all their secondary offerings and all their share plans themselves. It makes it a lot easier for the company themselves to operate and not have to worry about their stock. And over time, that will pull shareholders to, and the lower fees and the direct trading will pull shareholders in mass.
I'm going to keep going here. Raise your hand if any of the judges, have a question. But this ability, and I'm very impressed that you have as your mentors, both a representative from blockchain and a representative from ICE here in Atlanta. Congratulations on that. Are you, though, going around the requirement? Are these trades directly ever being printed on the tape, the official market, exchange?
Yeah, so we're actually below the tape. And the reason why is because if you want to get printed on the tape, it's actually very expensive. You have to pay a lot of fees. And that's also all above what's called central clearing. We don't really have time to go into central clearing, but like central clearing is right here, and the stock exchanges are above it, and the transfer agent is below it. And you get rid of all the fees by being at the transfer agent level. And what's cool is that when you trade on the blockchain, with the system we have, you can actually see every single trade on the blockchain. All the time in sales and all the order books are right on the blockchain. So you see the transfer agent level trade, you see the trades done with block transfer. Okay,
so other quick questions then. How are you balancing, as we've asked others, your student life with this business? And where do you see, how much of a moat have you created to prevent a competitor to easily step in and do what you're doing?
Yeah, it was definitely harder with the hedge fund. If you're familiar with polyphasic Uberman, it's that schedule where you nap every 20 minutes for every every 4 hours. You sleep like a couple hours a day. I did that for about half a year ago while running the fund. And that was kind of how I balanced an incredibly large fund workload with education. I'm actually really proud to say that just this last semester, I obtained an academic scholarship for a majority of my tuition, and I'm on track to graduate on the dean's list. In terms of competitors, we have filed 5 months ago a utility patent that covers most of what we do, and that should protect us for about 20 years.
Doug, can you speak to what your plan for the next 3 years, just from like a financial and your perspectives of here's what you think you guys are going to do from a volume standpoint and what that would look like from monetary and revenue and profit?
Yeah, we're just finished most of the big engineering design. We also had a cash injection from US Bank that helped fund that. And now we're getting right to that market phase. We have one of the leaders in blockchain and public markets in New York just recently reached out to us and asked us for information on being their transfer agent. And that contract should be a couple $100,000. In general, we're starting off with smaller firms to build out a strong base, kind of like how I started with the hedge fund, starting out with smaller clients to build a strong base. And we're just building up over time. So that means small cap issuers, those contracts are on average $40,000 to $80,000 a year. And we expect to pocket about 35 per contract on average. And because of the way the contracts are set up, we don't expect much capital windfall or many losses at the beginning. And we do have a buffer. We took a lot of the money from the hedge fund that we attained on the split and put that in as a buffer along with the US Bank money, should we need that. We haven't yet.
John, you talk a lot about we. Who is we?
Right now, it's myself, and then it's a lot of remote developers, especially because it's blockchain. A lot of the talent's abroad. So it's a lot of remote developers, a lot of open source developers that you pay bounties on, things like that.
So this is totally out of my realm of expertise. It's super hard for me to follow what you're talking about. Maybe you can dumb it down. I don't know if anyone else feels this way, but you're saying that, okay, thank you, John. You're saying that firms basically are paying $400K a year to transfer agents to transfer stocks between people that are buying them. Is that correct? Am I understanding correctly?
That's right.
And you're offering to do this a lot cheaper. Is that correct?
Additionally, yes.
What do you mean additionally?
On top of
Instead
speed,
of-
on top of transparency, stuff like that.
Okay. And what will you charge instead of $400K?
We're looking at, for our initial clients, of saving them at least $100,000, $200,000 a year on those higher level contracts, and kind of on the lower end, we would be saving them at least a few $1,000s a year.
Is this a percentage? Like if it's a small, like you said, you're going after smaller customers to begin with, so it's a percentage that they're going to save, anywhere from 25 to 50% using yours, and they're going to gain speed and transparency, right? Did I get it?
Perfect.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, John. Very interesting and exciting. What has been one of your largest or biggest challenges or roadblocks, and how have you handled it?
One of the hardest things was the initial SEC registration. It was a lot of work to get everybody on board with that. I personally, not to be bragocious or anything, but had to, I read through thousands and thousands and thousands of pages of legislation, much of it from almost a century ago, to really get the nails in on everything that had to be in the product to achieve SEC approval and final admission into the program they have. So it was a lot of legal work, no doubt, and a lot of reading to really make sure that we checked every box for compliance, because that really allows us to service all the shareholders that traditionally don't have access to book entry ownership.
Are you well funded for this? Are you raising money? What's your situation on that part, that front?
We're well funded. We're not raising right now.
What do you do in your free time when you're not working or going to university?
Just came back from a very enjoyable ski trip. A big fan of that. And I like to skateboard. I skateboard around a lot.
And John, how do you you've got you've got a circle of advisors. How do you look to expand that circle of advisors, or how are you going about to augment and help guide the company?
Oh, of course. There are many that just didn't make the cut for the presentation that were instrumental with the hedge fund, and they are still very close advisors and friends, and many are multimillionaire traders who have also been instrumental from looking at everything at the shareholder perspective, because they also, once you get to the higher level of investment capital, they'll work with the transfer agent, especially to enact, to be part of corporate voting, because they're activist investors a lot of the time. So there are just a lot of really incredible people in the area and around that have brought me to this journey. I would not be here without them. And of course, always looking to expand.
John, what do you think the size of this market is?
The market's about 4 billion a year globally. Computershare is a conglomerate. They're the largest player, but they also operate in about 12 other sectors. So they're worth about it's like, so if you extrapolate it, it's like a couple of billion market cap wise. But again, it is about a 4 billion a year global market.
Got about 30 seconds, maybe one more question. I have one. Have you always wanted to be an entrepreneur?
It's an interesting question. I started off, my dad left kind of early when I was in middle school, and I really felt the pressure as the oldest son to kind of step up in the family, which led me to working. And that one day I made that call just to leave everything and take a chance on the market. And I had taken a chance on so many things before that just went nowhere, and I had no reason to think it would succeed. But a year into trading, I just really felt something I'd never felt before. And I felt an incredible joy and just connection to trading. And it's just never wavered. I just love trading. I just really enjoy trading. This is a way to make it better. Just incredibly different.
Nice work. Great job, John. Definitely above my head. I was like, okay, well, blockchain, I'm out. But yeah, great stuff. Great stuff. So I think we're going to take a few minutes now to let the judges deliberate, and then we'll be back here in a few minutes of pivoting, because that's what it's all about as an entrepreneur. I guarantee, if I was a betting man and I could bet on it, so I'm going to take this bet, all these businesses will not be the same in a year or 2 years, because that's how you grow. It's figuring it out, and just nobody knows all the answers when they start, and just keep going and keep adjusting, and even if it means did y'all know that YouTube actually started off as a dating site? So it's like, gives you an idea how much pivoting it takes out there to really kind of do what you're going to do. So congratulations, everybody. It is Avi with 808. Congratulations, Avi. Keep moving forward with that as well. And in first place winner gets $3,500, which will cover their trip to the national competition. Plus, you're getting free accounting and tax review from Acuity. I've worked with them in the past. They're very good. Congratulations on this prize. And the winner is John with Block Transfer. Good job, John. Congratulations. It might have been the tie and suit that might have really put it over the top for you. I know you're wearing pajama pants, but still, what we see looks impressive. So congratulations, John. Congratulations, everybody. Like I said, this is a great journey, and you're going to get told no a million times more than you're telling yes, and just keep going and enjoy it and pivot and all that good stuff. So great job, students. Very inspirational.